October 1999, San Francisco. Three young tech professionals finish their late-night coding session at DataWave Solutions. They leave the office near midnight, laptop bags over shoulders, talking about tomorrow's make-or-break investor pitch. They turn into Tehama Alley, heading to their parking garage 2 blocks away. No car accident, no witnesses, no bodies, just a cracked cell phone, a scrap of blood-stained fabric caught on a fence, and a leather portfolio floating in Mission Creek. The case file disappears into obscurity for 2 decades, sealed in SFPD's evidence storage at Hunter's Point. Then in 2024, when the department launches its Cold Case DNA initiative, a forgotten piece of torn fabric, overlooked for 25 years because technology couldn't read its microscopic story, changes everything. It carries touch DNA belonging to someone the 3 victims trusted completely, their company's senior technical advisor. A man questioned and cleared in 1999 because the science wasn't advanced enough to see what was hiding in plain sight. Before diving into the story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to stay updated on the latest cases. On the night of October 14, 1999, San Francisco's South of Market district hummed with the restless energy of the dot-com boom. Venture capital flowed freely. Startups occupied every converted warehouse. Young professionals worked around the clock chasing IPOs and stock options. DataWave Solutions, a 22-person data encryption startup on the 4th floor of 235 2nd Street, embodied this fevered optimism. The company had secured $3.2 million in Series A funding 6 months earlier and was preparing for a Series B pitch that could value them at $50 million. Inside the office at 11:22 p.m., 3 core team members worked through final touches on their investor presentation, scheduled for 9:30 a.m. the following morning. The conference room glowed with laptop screens. Empty pizza boxes and Red Bull cans littered the table. Maya Rodriguez, 26, a brilliant software engineer from UC Berkeley with a master's degree in computer science specializing in cryptographic protocols, reviewed code documentation one last time. Brandon Yu, 24, a systems analyst who'd graduated Stanford with honors just 16 months prior, compiled performance benchmarks showing their encryption algorithm was 40% faster than competitors. Olivia Mitchell, 27, the team's project manager and former McKinsey consultant, practiced her opening remarks, timing each slide transition. The office clock above the humming server rack read 11:22 p.m. when Maya finally closed her IBM ThinkPad with a satisfied sigh. "That's it," she announced, stretching. "If we tweak this anymore, we'll break something. We're as ready as we'll ever be." Brandon and Olivia agreed, both exhausted but exhilarated. The adrenaline of tomorrow's opportunity was starting to override their fatigue. The building's security camera, a grainy black and white system typical of the era, captured their departure at 11:28 p.m. Maya powered down her laptop methodically, following her usual ritual. Brandon gathered printouts and burned CDs containing backup presentations. Olivia tucked their master copy, a brown leather portfolio stuffed with color-printed slides, financial projections, and non-disclosure agreements, securely under her arm. They waved to Carl Henderson, the 58-year-old night security guard who'd worked the building for 6 years. Henderson later told police he remembered them being upbeat, practically bouncing with nervous energy. Maya joked about setting 3 alarm clocks. Brandon quipped about needing an IV drip of coffee. Olivia laughed and held up the portfolio like a trophy, saying, "This is our golden ticket." The glass door clicked shut behind them at exactly 11:31 p.m., according to the electronic access log, a detail that would become crucial to investigators. Outside, 2nd Street was quieter than usual for a Thursday night in Soma. Most startups emptied out by 9 p.m. The famous San Francisco fog hadn't rolled in yet, leaving the October night unusually clear and cold. Temperatures around 52 degrees with a light breeze carrying the salt smell from the bay. Sodium vapor streetlights cast orange pools across sidewalks lined with converted warehouses. The three walked together, discussing logistics for the morning meeting. Who would drive to the Four Seasons? What time to meet for breakfast? Whether to wear full suits or business casual. Maya suggested business casual, arguing that suits might make them look out of touch with startup culture. Brandon worried that venture capitalists expected formality. Olivia proposed a compromise: dress shirts and blazers without ties. They turned onto Tehama Alley, a narrow 400-foot passage between brick warehouses connecting 2nd Street to Clementina Street parking structure. The alley was poorly lit, with only 2 functioning street lamps at either end, leaving the middle section cloaked in shadow. Loading docks and metal fire escapes lined both sides. During the day, delivery trucks used it constantly. At night, it became a shortcut most people hurried through. What happened next would remain a mystery for 25 years. Catherine Wong, 31, a web designer who lived on the 3rd floor of a converted loft overlooking the alley's midpoint, later told police she'd been working by her open window around 11:35 p.m. She heard young voices talking animatedly about valuation multiples and market penetration. She distinctly remembered someone saying 12 times revenue with excitement, followed by laughter. Then the electronic chirp of a car alarm being disarmed. Then what might have been a brief, sharp exclamation, though she couldn't be certain. Then silence. Complete silence. Wong thought nothing of it at the time, assuming they'd reached their car. She turned back to her computer and forgot about it until police knocked on her door 36 hours later. By 8 a.m., Friday, October 15th, DataWave's CEO Richard Castellano, 42, a former Sun Microsystems executive who'd founded the company in early 1998, arrived at the office with bagels and coffee, ready for a final presentation run-through. But the conference room was empty. The presentation materials were gone, which made sense, but no sign of his team. He wasn't immediately concerned. They were meticulous planners who arrived early. But at the Four Seasons Hotel at 9:15 a.m., they weren't there. He tried calling. Maya's Nokia rang once, then voicemail. Brandon's the same. Olivia's went straight to voicemail. By 9:30, with investors waiting, Castellano delivered the presentation alone, making awkward apologies. The pitch went poorly. Investors declined to move forward without meeting the technical team. By 10:45 a.m., calls to roommates confirmed none had come home. Maya's roommate, Jessica Lim, said her bed was untouched, her cat meowing for breakfast. Brandon's landlord confirmed the same. Olivia's partner, Marcus, called in a panic. "This isn't like her. She always calls, always." At 2:15 p.m., his hands shaking, Castellano filed a missing persons report at SFPD's Southern Station. The duty sergeant, initially treating it as routine, upgraded the urgency after hearing details. 3 responsible professionals with a critical meeting vanishing simultaneously with no contact for 15 hours. The case landed on Inspector Patricia Reeves's desk at 3:40 p.m. Reeves, 42, was a 12-year veteran of SFPD's homicide detail, known for meticulous evidence collection and refusal to accept convenient explanations. She'd worked dozens of missing persons cases, and most resolved within 48 hours. but something about this one felt viscerally wrong. She dispatched officers Derek Martinez and Linda Chang to DataWave's building at 4:20 p.m. Building manager Bob Ellison provided access to the fourth-floor office. Inside, everything appeared orderly. Computers shut down properly, conference room cleaned. Security guard Henderson confirmed they'd left together around 11:30 p.m., seemed normal, laughing, excited. He provided security tapes showing their departure, but no cameras covered Tehama Alley. Reeves arrived on scene at 5:15 p.m. and made a critical decision: expand the search immediately to their known route. Time mattered. Maya's Honda Civic was parked in a structure on Clementina Street. The most direct route was through Tehama Alley, a 400-foot walk taking less than 5 minutes. If something happened, it happened there. Officers began canvassing Tehama Alley at 5:30 p.m. as daylight faded. The alley smelled of motor oil, standing water, and garbage. At 5:45 p.m., Martinez noticed torn fabric snagged on a chain-link fence at the alley's midpoint. Dark gray wool blend, roughly 4 inches long, with brownish staining. He photographed it from multiple angles before carefully bagging it as Item 1A, Fabric, Tehama Alley Fence. 20 feet further, at 6:05 p.m., Chang spotted a black Nokia 5110 cell phone face down on the asphalt. The screen was shattered completely, casing cracked. The phone had an MIT sticker, later identified as Brandon's, bagged as Item 1B, cell phone. By 6:30 p.m., SFPD's forensic team arrived. Technician Harold Winters deployed UV lights, revealing a blood droplet on concrete near the fence. It tested positive for blood. He sampled it carefully, labeled Item 1C, blood sample. The search expanded to the parking structure. Inside, Maya's silver Honda Civic sat in her assigned space, untouched, locked, covered in dust. They'd never reached the car. Reeves upgraded the case to potential abduction with violence. A citywide BOLO was issued at 8:30 p.m. Over 48 hours, the investigation expanded. Flyers appeared across Soma. Media covered the story extensively. 3 tech workers vanish in Soma, read the Chronicle's headline. A tip line received over 80 calls. One stood out. Trevor Walsh, a 29-year-old bicycle messenger, reported seeing 3 people matching the descriptions talking to someone near a dark sedan in Tehama Alley around 11:40 p.m. on October 14th. The 4th person was a tall, middle-aged man wearing business casual. What struck Walsh was the body language. The 3 appeared relaxed, familiar with this person, as if they knew him. They weren't acting afraid or defensive. It looked like a normal conversation. Walsh hadn't stopped because nothing seemed threatening. Only after seeing news coverage did he realize what he'd witnessed might be significant. This fundamentally shifted the investigation. The victims had encountered someone they knew or trusted. On October 18th, forensic results returned. The fabric was wool poly blend, charcoal gray, consistent with men's jacket material. The blood sample tested positive for human origin, type O positive, matching Maya Rodriguez's medical records. This was the first direct evidence linking a victim to violence in Tehama Alley. The cell phone, despite damage, powered on after charging. It contained stored numbers and call history, but no calls after 11:30 p.m. Partial fingerprints were found on the battery compartment, but produced no AFIS matches, meaning whoever handled it had no criminal record. On October 19th, Harbor Patrol swept Mission Creek. At 10:25 a.m., an officer found a brown leather object caught against a drainage grate. It was Olivia's portfolio, waterlogged but intact. Inside a zippered pocket was a business card. David Merrick, Senior Technical Advisor, DataWave Solutions. David Merrick, 38, was a well-known Bay Area tech consultant. A former IBM engineer, he'd been working with DataWave since February 1999, advising on encryption algorithms and mentoring the team. Richard Castellano confirmed Merrick had been at the office on October 14th, reviewing presentation materials around 6:30 p.m., then leaving around 8 p.m. On October 21st, Inspector Reeves and Detective Louis Chan visited Merrick's Russian Hill apartment for a voluntary interview. Merrick, dressed casually in jeans and a sweater, appeared surprised but cooperative. "Is this about Maya, Brandon, and Olivia?" he asked. "I saw the news. It's horrible." Inside his tastefully decorated apartment, featuring vintage technology, memorabilia, and framed patents, Merrick sat in an armchair. He confirmed working closely with the 3 victims over 8 months. "They were incredibly talented," he said with apparent sadness. Maya especially had an intuitive understanding of cryptography. Brandon was meticulous. Olivia kept everyone organized. They were going to do great things. Reeves asked about October 14th. Merrick's account was detailed and consistent. He'd arrived at DataWave around 5:30 p.m., reviewed their slides around 6:30 p.m., suggested adjustments, and left around 8 p.m. to meet his friend Kevin Zhao for dinner at Il Piccolo restaurant in North Beach. He provided contact information without prompting. "After dinner, probably around 10:30, I drove home," Merrick continued. "I watched TV, worked on a proposal, went to bed around midnight. I didn't see them again after I left at 8. When asked about his vehicle, Merrick said he owned a dark blue 1998 Lexus sedan parked outside. Officers photographed it with his permission. The interior was clean, no blood, no signs of struggle. Over the following week, detectives verified Merrick's alibi. Kevin Zhao confirmed dinner from 8:45 p.m. to 10:15 p.m. The restaurant's reservation book showed Merrick party of 2, 8:30 p.m. Surveillance footage from a nearby cafe showed a sedan matching Merrick's Lexus parked from 8:50 p.m. to 10:20 p.m. This created an ironclad alibi. If Merrick left DataWave at 8 p.m. and was at dinner by 8:45 p.m., and the victims didn't leave until 11:31 p.m., he couldn't have been in Tehama Alley at 11:35, 11:40 p.m. Based on this verification, Merrick was removed from the active suspect list by early November. Meanwhile, DNA testing was requested on the blood and fabric. The blood confirmed Maya's genetic profile. However, the fabric presented a challenge. In 1999, touch DNA technology, extracting DNA from skin cells left by brief contact, was in its infancy. Without visible biological material, the lab couldn't extract a DNA profile with available techniques. The fabric was documented and stored at 40 degrees Fahrenheit, optimal for preserving biological material. Its potential locked away until future technology could unlock it. By late November 1999, the investigation had exhausted immediate leads. No bodies despite extensive searches of Soma, Mission Creek, and surrounding areas. No murder weapon. No witnesses beyond Walsh's account. Financial records showed no unusual activity. Personal lives revealed no threats or enemies. The case began to cool. Resources shifted to active cases with fresher leads. Inspector Reeves continued following tips through December 1999 and into 2000, but each lead evaporated. In March 2000, 6 months after the disappearance, families held memorial services, though legally the 3 remained missing. The services were heartbreaking, attended by hundreds. Richard Castellano gave a tearful eulogy. They believed in what we were building. They deserved to see it succeed. DataWave struggled after losing its core technical team. The Series B funding failed. When the dot-com bubble burst in early 2001, DataWave was among thousands of casualties. The company dissolved, employees scattering to surviving firms. In June 2002, Reeves wrote a comprehensive case summary recommending transfer to the cold case unit. All active investigative leads have been exhausted. Physical evidence has been preserved for future forensic re-examination. Recommend periodic review as technology advances. All evidence was carefully boxed and transported to SFPD's evidence facility at Hunters Point, placed in climate-controlled storage. The case file was placed on a shelf alongside hundreds of other unsolved investigations. Reeves kept a personal copy at home, occasionally reviewing it late at night, hoping to spot something missed. "I know what happened to them," she'd tell her husband. "I just can't prove it yet." The 2000s passed with periodic reviews yielding no breakthroughs. In 2005, SFPD's cold case unit re-examined the evidence using updated DNA technology, but without a suspect's sample to compare against, results only confirmed what was known. In 2008, a hiker discovered skeletal remains in the Santa Cruz Mountains, briefly raising hopes, but dental records ruled out any connection. San Francisco transformed dramatically through these years. The dot-com crash gave way to recovery, then another massive tech boom in the 2010s, fueled by social media, mobile apps, and cloud computing. South of Market became a forest of glass towers housing Twitter, Uber, Airbnb. The building at 235 2nd Street was demolished in 2012, replaced by a luxury residential tower. Tehama Alley was revitalized with new lighting, public art, and trendy cafes. Few people walking through it knew that in October 1999, 3 young professionals had vanished there without a trace. Inspector Patricia Reeves retired from SFPD in June 2015 after 28 years of service. Before cleaning out her desk, she wrote one final memo to the cold case unit supervisor. Request case 994421 be preserved indefinitely for future forensic re-examination. Biological evidence on item 1A may yield DNA profiles with advancing touch DNA technology. Recommend review when genealogical DNA methods become standard practice. She signed it, filed it, and hoped someone would listen. The years rolled on. In April 2018, the Golden State Killer case was solved after 4 decades using forensic genetic genealogy, uploading crime scene DNA to public genealogy databases like GED Match to find familial matches, then building family trees to identify suspects. The breakthrough captivated the nation and sent shockwaves through law enforcement. Cold cases once considered unsolvable suddenly had hope. SFPD took notice. In January 2024, the department launched its Cold Case DNA Initiative, a partnership with private forensic laboratories and the California Department of Justice. The goal was systematic re-examination of cases from the 1990s and early 2000s, where biological evidence had been preserved but never fully analyzed using modern techniques. Case 994421 appeared on the priority list, flagged by Reeves's 2015 memo and the notation "Biological evidence preserved, touch DNA potential." On March 5, 2024, the evidence boxes were retrieved from storage and transported to Gene Sleuth, a specialized forensic laboratory in Emeryville. Dr. Angela Frost, a 41-year-old forensic geneticist with a PhD from UC Davis and 15 years' experience, led the re-examination. Opening the boxes, she found the evidence in remarkable condition. The blood sample, properly frozen, still contained viable DNA. And the torn fabric, item 1A, preserved at 40 degrees for 25 years, looked almost as it had in 1999. Modern touch DNA analysis, refined over the 2010s, could extract genetic profiles from as few as 10 to 20 skin cells left by brief contact. Dr. Frost used MVAC wet vacuum DNA collection, spraying the fabric with sterile solution, then vacuuming it back, capturing microscopic biological material. The sample was analyzed using advanced STR profiling with 23 genetic markers, far more than the 13 markers standard in 1999. On March 18, 2024, Dr. Frost called SFPD's cold case unit with news. "We got a profile from the fabric, male contributor distinct from all 3 victims, likely from skin cells on the inner surface, where it contacted the wearer's body before tearing. The profile is complete, 23 out of 23 markers, pristine quality." This was the breakthrough the case had needed for 25 years. The DNA belonged to someone in Tehama Alley the night of the crime, whose clothing tore during a struggle, whose genetic signature had been waiting silently. The profile was entered into CODIS, the FBI's national DNA database. On March 19th, the result: no direct match. Whoever left DNA on that fabric had no criminal record. But forensic genetic genealogy changed everything. With legal authorization, the DNA profile was converted to a format compatible with public genealogy databases. On April 2, 2024, the search produced 14 distant familial matches, third and fourth cousins sharing DNA segments with the unknown contributor. Gene Sleuth's genealogist, Marcus Whitfield, began the painstaking work of building family trees. Using shared DNA segments, he traced back generations through birth records, marriage certificates, census data, and obituaries to find common ancestors. Then he moved forward through descendants, identifying every living relative in the right age range and geographic area. The work took weeks, thousands of hours cross-referencing databases and public records. By late April, Whitfield had narrowed the field to a single family line. The Merricks, a family with roots in Oregon, multiple branches spreading across the West Coast, several members who'd lived in the San Francisco Bay Area since the 1990s. One name jumped out: David Thomas Merrick, born May 3, 1961, in Eugene, Oregon. Moved to the Bay Area in 1995, still residing in Northern California as of 2024, and, crucially, documented as having worked at DataWave Solutions in 1999 as senior technical advisor. Investigators pulled the original case file and made a discovery that sent a chill through the cold case unit. David Merrick had been interviewed on October 21, 1999, as a witness and briefly as a person of interest. He'd been cleared based on a verified alibi and absence of physical evidence. But the torn fabric found at the crime scene contained Merrick's DNA, left when his jacket tore during a struggle. The technology to detect and analyze touch DNA simply didn't exist in a practical form then. The evidence had been sitting in storage for 25 years, silently waiting for science to catch up. On April 25, 2024, a surveillance team began monitoring David Merrick, now 62, residing in San Rafael, Marin County, about 20 miles north of San Francisco. Merrick lived alone, divorced in 2010, no children. He worked as an independent technology consultant, maintaining a low profile, no social media, no criminal record. Surveillance confirmed his routine: morning coffee at a local cafe, work from home, occasional client meetings, grocery shopping, evenings reading or watching television. He appeared to be living a quiet, unremarkable life, a man who'd successfully hidden a terrible secret for a quarter century. On April 29th, detectives collected a discarded coffee cup from Pete's Coffee on 4th Street in San Rafael, where Merrick had breakfast. The cup, with visible lip marks, was immediately sealed and transported to Gene Sleuth's lab. Dr. Frost extracted saliva DNA from the rim and ran a full 23-marker STR profile. On May 3, 2024, Exactly 25 years to the day after Merrick's 38th birthday in 1999, the lab confirmed a perfect match. All 23 STR markers aligned. The statistical probability of a random match was less than 1 in 10 billion. Essentially, impossible. Armed with this evidence, SFPD's cold case unit prepared arrest and search warrants. The case was presented to a judge on May 7th. The judge signed the warrants that afternoon. On the morning of May 8, 2024, a multi-agency team arrived at David Merrick's San Rafael home at 6:47 a.m., sunrise breaking over the East Bay Hills. Detectives knocked firmly. "San Francisco Police, we have a warrant." David Merrick answered the door in a bathrobe and slippers, his gray hair uncombed. He looked at the assembled officers, then nodded slowly, almost wearily, as if this moment had always been inevitable. "I've been expecting this," he said quietly. 25 years is a long time to wait." He was arrested without resistance, handcuffed, read his Miranda rights, and transported to SFPD headquarters. Inside his home, forensic teams seized computers, documents, and personal items. In a closet, they found a journal dating back to 1999, its pages filled with cryptic entries. David Merrick was formally charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of Maya Rodriguez, Brandon Yu, and Olivia Mitchell. Though their bodies were never recovered, the combination of physical evidence, DNA, circumstantial connections, and ultimately Merrick's own partial confession built a strong case. During interrogation over 2 days, Merrick initially remained silent. Then, recognizing the overwhelming evidence, he provided a partial account. He admitted to meeting the 3 in Tehama Alley on October 14, 1999. He'd returned to the area after his dinner in North Beach. His alibi was real, but incomplete. An argument erupted over intellectual property. Merrick claimed credit for core encryption algorithms that Maya Rodriguez had independently developed. When she confronted him, threatening to expose his false claims to investors, he panicked. "I didn't plan it," Merrick said, his voice flat, emotionless. "It just happened. They were going to ruin everything I'd built. My reputation, my career. I couldn't let them." He described a brief, violent struggle. His jacket tore as Maya grabbed at him. Brandon's phone was knocked from his hand. Olivia dropped her portfolio. The specific details of what happened next, how the 3 died, where their bodies were taken, Merrick refused to disclose. The arrest shocked the San Francisco Bay Area tech community and devastated the families who'd waited 25 years. Retired Inspector Patricia Reeves, now 71, learned of the arrest from a phone call. She wept openly. "I knew something was wrong with his alibi in 1999, she told reporters. "The timeline was too neat, but we didn't have the tools. We couldn't see what was on that piece of fabric. Now science has given us the answer." David Merrick's trial was scheduled for October 2025, 26 years after the crime. The case would hinge on DNA evidence, genealogical science, witness testimony, and circumstantial connections spanning decades. Prosecutors were confident. "This is what justice looks like when technology and persistence combine," said the San Francisco District Attorney. 3 young people with bright futures were stolen from their families. Today, we move closer to holding their killer accountable. For the families of Maya Rodriguez, Brandon Yu, and Olivia Mitchell, the arrest brought agonizing closure mixed with enduring pain. They'd never see their loved ones again, never know where their remains rest. But they finally had answers about what happened on that October night in 1999. The torn piece of fabric, item 1A, preserved for 25 years in cold storage at 40 degrees Fahrenheit, became the key that unlocked the truth. It proved that even in the coldest cases, even when technology fails the first time, evidence can wait patiently for science to catch up, for genealogy to connect invisible threads, for justice to finally emerge from the fog. For Inspector Patricia Reeves, the breakthrough was bittersweet. "I carried this case for so long," she said in a press interview after the arrest. "There were nights I'd wake up thinking about that fabric, wondering if we'd missed something. I wrote that memo before retiring because I knew one day the technology would exist. I just hoped I'd still be alive to see it." The case reshaped how SFPD approached evidence preservation. The department upgraded storage facilities, implemented stricter protocols for biological samples, and expanded training on emerging forensic technologies. But for those closest to the victims, no scientific breakthrough could restore what was lost. Maya's mother spoke at a memorial service held days after Merrick's arrest. "For 25 years, we lived in limbo. Not knowing is a special kind of torture. At least now we know. At least now someone will answer for what they did." The DataWave case became a landmark in forensic science, cited in academic papers and training programs nationwide. It demonstrated the power of preserving evidence, even when current technology couldn't analyze it. It validated genealogical DNA as a tool for solving cold cases. And it proved that time, while it may diminish memories, cannot erase truth embedded in biological material. David Merrick sits in San Quentin, awaiting trial. He's declined most interviews, maintaining partial silence about the victims' final moments and their burial sites. Prosecutors continue building their case, confident the DNA evidence alone will secure a conviction. The building at 235 2nd Street no longer exists, replaced by luxury condos housing a new generation of tech workers. Tehama Alley still connects 2nd Street to the parking structures beyond, now lined with coffee shops and art galleries. Few who walk through it know its history, but in SFPD's evidence facility at Hunters Point, in a climate-controlled vault, Item 1A remains preserved. A 4-inch scrap of charcoal gray fabric. A piece of evidence that waited 25 years to speak. A silent witness that finally found its voice. Justice, as it turns out, doesn't have an expiration date. Sometimes it just needs patience, preservation, and the right technology to bring the truth into the light. If you found this case as compelling as we did, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We'll continue bringing you stories where justice, no matter how long delayed, eventually finds its way. See you in the next video.